Hi, hockey fans, and welcome to episode 4 of Wild Wednesdays, presented by Explore Minnesota. Ben Gislason here, not joined by Joe O'Donnell, but joined by a very special guest here this afternoon in Wild defenseman Louie Belpedio. So, Louie, it's great to have you, and I'm sure if Joe's listening, he'll sit back and go, boy, Louie's going to do a better job than me.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I appreciate the time, and I know our fans are going to appreciate it as well. It's the first time this season we've had a player on, and it might be the first time for some of you tuning in to Wild Wednesdays, and you're wondering, what are you about to see? Well, we're going to talk to Louie about the Texas road trip. He was not on it because, unfortunately, right now, Louie is out due to injury, but he watched both games. We'll check in on the status of the big club in St. Paul, who Louie has spent some time with this year as well, both on the taxi squad and playing in a game against the LA Kings earlier this season. Talk a little bit more to Louie about the depth of his career, all that he's been through a little bit. Won't take up too much of his time, though, today. And talk about what COVID protocol has been like as well for players this season. We've got some state of hockey trivia towards the end of our show, and we'll look ahead to this weekend's series, Rockford and the Wild in Rockford. Don't forget, fans, that no matter which route you take, they can all lead to your true north. Head to exploreminnesota.com to check out all the North Star State has to offer. That's exploreminnesota.com, proud sponsors of your Iowa Wild. Well, Louie, I want to start the show by talking to you a little bit about maybe the good, the bad, and the ugly of what the COVID protocols have been like. It's been stringent. There's been a lot that players have not been allowed to do. But in any circumstance, there are good things that come from it. What has it been like as a team, as an individual this season so far?
I think it's been different for everyone, not just, our team, but for everyone in Iowa and the rest of the country and the rest of the world. It has been a lot different. You can't really go out to eat. You can't do, things you would normally do. Your routine changes a little bit. You got to get tested every day. But ultimately, we're playing games, so that's all you can really ask for. So you kind of sacrifice a little bit to be able to play, and I think any of us would take that any day of the week. So it's been okay. Our staff's done a great job keeping everyone safe and keeping everyone healthy. Yeah, it is a lot different at the same time.
Are you at least thankful that they're not making you wear masks during practice? I've seen that with some youth hockey, and as someone who used to play the game a little bit, I remember getting tired in practice and thinking, if I had a mask on during this, I can't imagine how these kids are doing it.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's different for us. I think the fact that we're getting tested every single day kind of makes it, more acceptable to not wear them. I wouldn't enjoy it. I don't think anyone likes, sweating and breathing in their own sweat all day. Yeah, so I'm definitely happy we don't have to deal with that.
Before we move ahead, and actually, I should say before we move backward to talk about last weekend, a couple of housekeeping items looking forward for the Iowa Wild. It's been a long road trip for the Wild. Granted, though, Louie and I weren't on the trip to Texas. That was games 4 and 5 of what was supposed to be a 7-game road trip. The Wild did have that game postponed on Wednesday of last week against the Stars down in Texas due to COVID protocol from the AHL. Luckily, we were able to play Friday, able to play Saturday. It was just a scare, nothing too serious or grave going on with the Wild, so that was obviously great news. Wild were able to play in those 2 games, but we do want to talk about March 13th. The Wild will be at home against the Chicago Wolves, and that day there will be a one-of-a-kind giveaway item. Yes, Hunter Warner socks. That is Hunter Warner's face on a pair of socks. Louie, if you don't have any, we'll make sure to get you some, but fans can get their hands on the Bearded Wonder's face socks coming up here on March 13th. And it's also a hockey happy hour with 2 for $12 tall boys leading up to puck drop. Again, those socks will be handed out at the gates, so get your tickets at iowawild.com, Wild and Wolves. And then Sunday, March 14th, take advantage of our spring break ticket packs. That's a ticket to the game, an Iowa Wild hat, and an Iowa Wild puck starting at just $20. The link is in the bio to this post, so feel free to head over there and check out that opportunity to get your hands on a great spring break ticket package. Louie, talking about last weekend, it was a split with Texas. Did you watch both games? And you probably have to answer yes, because if you didn't, you don't want Tim Army to find out that you weren't watching the game, but I'm sure you were. What did you make of both Friday's game and then Saturday's game?
Honestly, I think, obviously we split, but yes, I did watch both games. for the record. But I thought we played well both nights. Even the night we lost, we were doing the right things, playing the right way, and that happens. And as long as you're doing the right things, I mean, obviously the results hopefully go your way more times than they don't. So I was, obviously it's easy for me to say sitting there watching from my couch, but I thought the guys played really well, and one win on the road is fine, and we'll get that opportunity to reschedule that Wednesday game, and hopefully win that one as well.
You've been up and down quite a bit between the taxi squad, the official Minnesota Wild lineup, and then, of course, here with the Iowa Wild so far this season, Louie. But you have been around enough to be around this defensive core for the Wild here in Iowa that is extremely young. Guys like Ryan O'Rourke, 18 years of age, Kalen Addison, who scored his first professional goal last weekend against the Texas Stars, and then added another one for the game winner later in that game on Friday night. For you, it's been interesting, I'm sure, because you're just a fourth-year pro, but all of a sudden when you're here in Iowa, you're in a mentorship role. What has that been like, mentoring younger players, even though you yourself are still at a pretty young age?
Yeah, it's been it's been fun. They're obviously mature and they're all great players, so I don't have to do too much or say too much. Just try to lead by example, and they're obviously here for a reason, so they know what they're doing, and any way I can help, I try to, but they're successful in their own way, and that's all that matters.
Again, if you have a question for myself, or I would ask more questions to Louie than I would me, he's got better answers. Feel free to throw a comment or a question over on this Facebook page as we roll along here again. Ben Gislason and Louie Belpedio, pleasure to have you on board with us here this afternoon on Wild Wednesdays, presented by Explore Minnesota. Continuing to talk about last weekend, again, a split between the Stars and the Wild. Saturday's game was almost a carbon copy of Friday. Texas had the lead 3-2 going into the third period on Friday night. They also did on Saturday. The only difference was the Wild were unable to come back from that deficit in the third period on Saturday, which they did do on Friday. One thing that did happen positively for Iowa, both games, more points for Gabriel Dumont. He's now on a 9-game point streak. He is 1 game away from tying the franchise record currently held by Sam Annis and Jerry Mayhew for 10 points in 10 straight games. So I'm curious to ask you, Louie, when you've got the opportunity to be around, to skate with, to skate against Gabriel Dumont, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of what he brings to a lineup?
His work ethic. He's always working hard. You're going to get his best every single shift, and obviously he's being rewarded for it, so I'm happy for him.
Talking about Minnesota with Louie Belpedio here, you've been up there, you know what it's like. You've been up multiple times over your past now 3 seasons, coming into 4 this year as a National Hockey League and an American Hockey League player, Louie. Big few weeks for Minnesota up there. They obviously cranked out 7 wins in a row. Saw Matt Zuccarello get named 3rd star of the week last week. Kirill Kaprizov might be arguably the top rookie in the league. We'll see if he winds up with the Calder Trophy at the end of the season. What's it like being a part of that culture up there, being a part of that room? Because it seems like the culture up with Minnesota right now, much as it is here, seems very, very strong.
Yeah, it's been good, and obviously the culture has to be good to go on a win streak like that. Yeah, they got a bunch of good guys in that locker room, and they're obviously good players, and the results are clicking for them, and that's from a player standpoint, that's what you want, and obviously at the end of the day, that the league standings are all that matters when it comes playoff time, and they're setting themselves up for a good run.
You know what it takes to get up. The unfortunate bitter taste of what it's like to get sent down, and you're working your way towards becoming a mainstay in a National Hockey League club here. Obviously, we all hope sooner than later for you, Louie. When you look at the AHL, when you look at the NHL, what do you see that stands out as the difference between a guy that establishes himself and sticks to the NHL or a guy who is on the fringe right now like where you're at?
I think just consistency and, whatever deficiencies you have, just trying to round those out while you're down. For me, just try to take it day by day and, get better at the things that, I've been told I need to work on, things that I notice, in my own game that I need to work on. Yeah, I would just say consistency and the ability to just bring your best every night, and I would say that's probably the most important or biggest standout from my point of view.
A guy for Minnesota who's been a pillar of consistency this year has been one of your former teammates, so I guess still current teammate when you're up with Minnesota, Kaapo Kähkönen. He has been brilliant, especially over that stretch of 7 games that the Wild won with some help from some other goaltenders aside from Kaapo. But why do you think his game has translated from an award-winning season in the AHL last year to a standout in the NHL this year?
That's a good question. Obviously, I knew he was a great goalie because he was my teammate for the past few years. So I'm glad to see him get his chance as a mainstay there. And, he got an opportunity and ran with it. And he's been great for them. And he's, a great guy, great player. And I'm happy for him.
Defending Kirill Kaprizov. Few have been able to figure out how to do that. You've probably had to do it, I'd imagine, maybe a couple of times this year in practice. Do you have any moments that stand out to you about watching this kid and thinking, wow?
Yeah, he's obviously really skilled. He's strong. He can skate. So you kind of got to respect him, and I think other teams have to do that as well. They're kind of learning, kind of like, who is this guy? Yeah, he's a skilled player. He works hard. He's usually one of the last ones off the ice. So it's nice to see his game translate over here, and he's a really nice kid too. So you kind of got to just respect him and enjoy his presence on and off the ice.
Enjoying this time so far, Louie. And again, if fans have any questions, feel free to throw a comment. We'll get to them towards the end of the show. I've got some questions for you, Lou. I know I've asked a lot about some other players. I do want to talk about you here today. For our fans listening, for me too, because I'm curious, what do people not know about Louie Belpedio? And it doesn't even have to be about hockey, that you'd want people to know.
That's a good question, honestly. I think, I actually don't really know. Away from the rink, I don't do much.
Especially these days.
Yeah, these days I don't do much. Play a lot of Xbox. In the summertime I golf. My girlfriend lives in New Jersey, so I travel out there on the weekends and when I'm not training and stuff. Yeah, I'm pretty basic, I would say. Pretty easygoing.
Well, there's nothing basic about your game. So basic guy, a very above average hockey player, I'd say. How's your golf game? I'd be curious. All of our golf games will be bad when we do hopefully eventually get back out on the golf course here. Maybe sooner than later, the weather's nice enough. We'll have to obviously confirm with the American Hockey League that if we have the opportunity to go play golf or not, being in the bubble. But what was your best round this summer?
I'm an average golfer. I did get better though. My best round, I would say.
You don't have to say either. If you,
I think it was.
Don't want to put it out there.
No, it was fine. It was fine. It was an 82. Was my best round.
Pretty solid. I've never gotten there, so you got me beat.
Yeah, I put a lot of hours in the summer, so it should be around there. Yeah, 82 is my best round, but that's it's not always down there. Sometimes it's a lot higher.
Back to the hockey rink. Growing up a Chicago guy, a Chicago kid, I should say, a Chicago guy now, who were the players that you grew up watching? Who were the players that you kept an eye on and went, boy, if I can be like this guy someday, I'll really have made it?
Duncan Keith was always one of my favorites. He was, obviously went on that run, won the 3 cups. He's been there his whole career, so I got to grow up watching him. So, yeah, he was probably one of my favorite players, and I obviously, I'm not a forward, but I like watching Patrick Kane, still do. So those 2 guys are probably the 2 that stood out the most to me and that I kind of idolized growing up.
From idolization to embarrassment, I'd love to know, because I think every hockey player's got them, and I've asked this question before to other players, and they've not given me an answer. We talked about it before the show started. You told me you do have an answer to the most embarrassing hockey moment in the career of Louie Belpedio. Go.
Yeah, I was in practice one time. So obviously I put my skates on. I went on the ice, and I'm like falling all over the place. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, I don't have my skate guards on. I'm checking my steel, like, it doesn't seem like there's anything wrong with it. And I finally got up after falling, a second or third time or whatever. I got over to the bench and I looked down and I'm checking my steel, and someone put like clear tape like perfectly along the bottom so you can't see it. So that was embarrassing. All the guys were laughing at me the whole time because obviously they all knew I didn't. And I was just getting more angry at the fact that I couldn't figure it out at the time. So I'd say that was probably the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me.
That is a classic. Did this happen when you were here with the Wild?
No, this was in college. This was,
okay.
I want to say it was either my freshman or sophomore year in college. I think it was my freshman year.
So did you ever figure out who it was?
No, I got an idea, but I didn't figure it out. We'd always play pranks on each other, so someone probably got some bad karma their way at some point. So I just kind of let it slide.
Well, that was an embarrassing moment, no doubt about it, even though it wasn't your fault. I mean, that's the one thing I'll say about that embarrassing moment answer is really nothing you could have done there. I mean, who's going to go and check their skates every single morning, day, afternoon before a practice like that, especially with how many practices you've had in your career, dating back from your time at Miami of Ohio to before that. Moving forward, though, to what I'd imagine what would probably be one of your peak moments as a hockey player, and I'm sure you've been asked this 1,000 times, but I'd love to hear it. I bet you our fans would too. Making your NHL debut on April 7th, 2018 in San Jose against the Sharks, and you're the first player in the franchise history to ever put a multi-point performance up in your first NHL game as well. But aside from the points, aside from that, can you just walk me through that day and leading up to coming out at the Shark Tank for your first game? I mean, the hours, the sweat, everything that goes into that, it had to be just an incredible moment.
Yeah, it was cool. It was the most, I mean, I don't want to say the most important thing, but it is kind of the most important thing. My parents were there that night, so I got to kind of experience that with them. Yeah, just going through the day, like didn't really sleep at pregame nap. I obviously had my lunch or whatever, and then got to the rink. Didn't really say much, and then obviously, stepping on the ice for the first time was pretty cool. Just knowing that they were in the stands and watching me, and yeah, that was definitely a day that I'll never forget. So yeah, it was just overall, I don't really know how to describe it. It's something it's kind of cliche, something you dream of, growing up, and for that to finally happen was pretty special for me.
Did you get the rookie lap treatment?
I actually did not, which was yeah. I think I kind of lucked out there. Yeah, I don't know, I didn't get it, but it was still nonetheless, it was so fun. It was just a good opportunity for me, and I had a good time with it.
Louie, before we move forward, I'm going to let you rest up your voice for 1 second here, as I do want to make sure that we let our fans know there are still tickets available in our Bud Country Club section. It's a premium ticket to the game in a premium space up in the loft, overseeing every minute of the action. It's got an all-you-can-eat menu that comes with the Country Club package as well. Burgers, pulled pork, pulled chicken, sausage grinders, hot dogs, and nachos. Also, but for many will be the most important part, an all-you-can-drink menu of 12-ounce Budweiser, Bud Light, and Coca-Cola and water for the non-drinkers or for the kids as well. That's a $45 price tag to get your hands on all of that in the Bud Country Club. There are still seats available for the March 13th and March 14th games. Again, prices will vary on a game-by-game basis a little bit, and all ages are welcome, but you must be 21 plus to drink. Looking forward, Louie, we will not be here this weekend. One more set of games on this now 6-game road trip, longest of the season for Iowa, out in Rockford. You know the Rockford Ice Hogs well. They're a big rival in many eyes of many people, fans, coaches, players alike. When you think about Rockford, what does Louie Belpedio remember and think about with the Ice Hogs?
They're kind of similar to us. I guess you could say that about a lot of teams in this league. They work hard, don't give up. There's been times in the past where, they've been down, 3-4 goals against us and came back. So they're a resilient group. They work hard just like us. So it'll be a good game for us, or good set of games, actually.
What are the areas of Iowa's game that you feel the team needs to improve upon most to start to put more W's in the W column than L's in the L column?
That's a good question. I think just putting together like a full 60 minutes, no like 5-minute breakdowns or even 2-minute breakdowns. Obviously you're going to, mistakes are going to be made and, goals are going to be scored against you. But I think just, the more you could just string together a good couple shifts and ultimately a good period and just kind of snowball from there, I think that's when you start, winning games and taking, a lot more wins than losses, I would say.
Rockford 1-6-1 so far this season, so points are definitely on the table coming up here Saturday and Sunday in Rockford against the Ice Hogs. Wild currently sitting in 4th place with 7 points in the Central Division. Explore Minnesota State of Hockey trivia time. Again, Wild fans, if you are able to comment the answer to this question correctly on our Facebook posting here, you can get yourself 2 tickets to the March 14th game on Sunday versus the Chicago Wolves. This one I think might be the hardest we've had on these trivia segments, and I think it's the first one we've had from the actual cities area of Minnesota as well. The Minneapolis Skyway system is the most expensive skyway system in the world. Something that, even though I grew up in the Minneapolis area, never knew that. It makes sense, though, with how cold it gets there in the winter and also how many people work downtown Minneapolis. So again, it's the most expensive skyway system in the world. How many miles of walkable skyway does the city of Minneapolis have? Again, how many miles of walkable skyway does the city of Minneapolis have? If you get that correct and you're the first to post it on this Facebook feed, shoot us a message after the show and we'll get you lined up with tickets to Sunday's game against the Chicago Wolves. Louie, were you surprised to hear that? I would imagine Chicago has a lot of skyway walking as well.
I honestly don't even know if Chicago has a lot. I don't think they do.
They say brave the cold.
Yeah, you just kind of got to just suck it up and walk outside. I think I don't know. I mean, obviously don't go in a ton of the buildings downtown. I go shopping and stuff, but I don't know if they got underground or whatnot, but there's not much above ground, if any at all.
Did you make some trips to the Minnesota area growing up as a kid, playing in tournaments out there, any AAA stuff like that?
Yeah, we'd have like AAA tournaments and stuff, but that's about it. I mean, we go to like the Mall of America, just the basic stuff like that. But so yeah, I'd been there a few times before joining the organization.
Mm-hmm. So moving forward, Louie, we've got a couple of questions here from some fans. Actually, really just one for you from the fans, and then we'll probably get towards the tail end of our show. Got a couple of fans taking some guesses. Haven't seen the correct answer yet. Good try, Aaron. Good try, Brent. But you probably keep Googling to figure that one out would be probably my best guess. But Louie, one question Andrew wants to know. What is your greatest memory with the Iowa Wild from a greatest moment standpoint?
Greatest moment standpoint. That's a good question. Well, probably my first full year here, just making the playoffs. I think we were the first Iowa Wild team to make the playoffs. So I don't know if that's necessarily just one moment, but that last month of our season, we lost a good amount of games in a row, and we had to win the last 3 in order to make playoffs, and we ended up doing that. And then obviously won the first round and lost in the second round. But just that month and a half, 2-month stretch right there was pretty awesome.
Louie, you and I both come from areas that are very heavily hockey focused. You being Chicago, myself being Minneapolis and the Minnesota area. One thing I did not know about Des Moines when I came down here now 4 years ago to start a job, not with the Iowa Wild, but with the Des Moines Buccaneers, was there is a ton of hockey people here. There are tons of fans, and you need to look no further than even during the quarantine COVID world, the fans that we had on Saturday night. I don't think you were here for that game, Louie, but there was 4,000 plus people in the building, socially distanced, spaced out. I know when things have been normal, the fan base has been even larger than that on a nightly basis here with the Wild. Were you taken aback a little bit just because I know in Minnesota we didn't talk about Iowa being an area that had much hockey at all, and I can't imagine it was the same in Chicago.
I played against the Buccaneers a few times, so I knew that they have some interesting fans. Got some stuff thrown at us a few times, but my experience here in Des Moines has been awesome. Like, obviously the fan base is great, and as players, it's fun when the building's packed and people are yelling and stuff. So hopefully we can get back to that soon. But yeah, I think you're right. I wasn't here the one game when there was 4,000 plus, but that just goes to show what type of fans we have, and us as players appreciate the fans more than they know.
Well, I know we're looking forward to having some more fans back here on Saturday and Sunday of not this coming weekend, but the next weekend. And I'd hope and imagine with the weather and things seemingly looking a little bit better out there from a COVID forecasting perspective, I think we're hoping to see some numbers similar to what we saw on Saturday. And, hopefully by that weekend, Louie, you'll be healthy, and even more hopefully, not only could you be healthy, but maybe you could be up with the big club too and contributing up there. As much as we love having you here, we obviously know that the reason that all you guys are here is to make an impact and then move on and become National Hockey League players. So I really appreciate this time today, Louie. This has been great catching up with you. Any final notes for the fans before we sign off?
No, I just thank you for having me, and for the fans, just hopefully we get to see you guys soon.
So we did not get a correct answer to the question. I know we're getting a little bit of, I shouldn't say conspiracy, but a contesting to the answer here. We've got Google saying that it's 9.5. According to our friends at Explore Minnesota, We've got 8 miles as the official answer to the Minneapolis Skyway System walkable mileage. So 8 miles was the correct answer. We did not get a correct answer today. Now, we might get some flack for that because I'm hearing that Google says differently, but we go by Explore Minnesota's rules around here, a proud sponsor of the Iowa Wild. Coming up, Wild will be on the road this weekend. Joe O'Donnell's got you on 1460 AM and 106.3 FM KXNO. You can also tune in on AHL TV as well. Following weekend, the Wild are finally back here in Des Moines to take on the Chicago Wolves. Saturday and Sunday, puck drops in the evening on Saturday and in the afternoon on Sunday. Thanks to Louie Belpedio, thanks to Explore Minnesota, and thanks to all of you for tuning in here this afternoon. Should be back next week with plenty more, and hopefully we can get Joe dragged back onto the show as well next week to talk some hockey. So thanks again. Hope you all have a wonderful afternoon, and go Wild.